video is going to be pretty short. It's a simple video on why you can't directly edit your 3D scans. Here on the left is a 3D scan. Here on the right side is the CAD model that I 3D printed. In the center is simply the CAD model made into a STL. If you just take a look with the CAD model, there's no triangles. You can click on the different flat surfaces, curved surfaces, the edges. You can adjust things how you want them because it's the actual CAD model. This is the CAD model, but it's just been converted to STL. If you zoom in, you can see it's made up of thousands of triangles. And you can see right here the amount that makes up that model. And it's not going to have any mesh data for this since it's not a mesh. Here's the 3D scan. If you zoom in, it's the same thing. It's made up of triangles. However, the way that they're structured is completely different than this CAD model that's been converted. This is more uniform. And it's just simply how it is when you 3D scan. You take a point cloud, which would be little tiny points. And then once you mesh it, it triangulates it into a triangle. That's why your surfaces aren't completely smooth. And as you can see, there's nothing that you can do with the model. Even this one that's an STL. It just doesn't allow you to change anything. Now what you can do is do the mesh tool and you can convert it. Convert. It's going to tell you that there's over this amount of triangles. It'll take some time. I'll just click OK. Now it is processing. This is just what Fusion does. For me, it's always been slow. A lot of people say it's your computer, but it's not your computer. It's just the way that it handles everything. It doesn't handle large amounts of data like this. And it's still processing. And there it's finished processing. Now with this, you are able to select the triangles, not the triangles, but the lines, and you can add them. However, you see there's a ton of them. So it's not going to let you do the entire line unless you select the entire line. And as you can see, it's simply not processing well. Everything is laggy. I'll just go ahead and cancel that. Okay, and I'm back here. Fusion actually crashed out. But what I was getting to is you can see that there's a great amount of triangles. Generally, you would reduce the triangle count before attempting to do what I did. Which reducing the triangle count can affect the model accuracy. But as you can see, you are able to adjust now. It's not exactly as clean as adjusting this one. If you wanted to add, say, a hole right here, You can extrude and add an extra hole. The downside to something like this is you can't change this circle diameter. You can change this one since it was CAD created. And then moving on to the actual 3D scan, it works similar. It's just the triangles are shaped differently just due to it being scanned. As you can see, the order of the triangles, it shrunk the amount of them, but they're still not as uniform as this. And as you can see, the edge, since it was a 3D scan, it's not going to be as sharp. It's just an STL that came from a CAD model. And there'd just be no way of actually getting in there. If you wanted to just do something as simple as add a hole to it. Then you could do something like that. Since it's a triangle, it wasn't a completely flat surface. That's why the top didn't cut out. But this is still a 3D scan. It's still a mesh model. You would want to rebuild this in CAD. Just give you a quick way of how you do this. You don't want to convert the model because you need to stay in mesh format. And create a mesh section. This body, the plane that you want. The bottom plane is what I'm using. It gives you a slice throughout the model. Gives you kind of a trim of a sketch. And then from there, you can start creating it. Since this is a circle, they have a circle tool. Double click it, gives you your circle. There is no square tool or ellipse tool. It's just pretty basic. Fusion is good for some things, for reverse engineering. Me personally, I use a different software, which I'll show you in a second. But for this, you would just go through and make your lines. Something like that. I think I deleted the wrong line over here. you can add dimensions. That's what it's picking up for the scan. Also the hole. And this is just what it's picking up on average from the little section at the bottom where the sketch is actually at. At the very bottom, that's where it's saying that the hole is. But I know for a fact, since I made this model, this actually should be 12. But I'll just leave it there for now. Not going to worry about the slot. And that creates the cube from the scan there. And that's just kind of how to do it in Fusion. As mentioned, I don't use Fusion too much. To me, it's just not really set up for reverse engineering. I'll go ahead and head over to GeoMagick, which is what I use. Okay, and here it is loaded into GeoMagick. It's already aligned it to the coordinate system. This is kind of the difference between reverse engineering software and Fusion. Select the plane that's at the bottom, similar that we did with Fusion. Mesh sketch. It's picking up only on that slight line. I can just bring it up to wherever I want to sample it from. So I sample it just a little bit higher up. And this pretty much is the same thing that we saw before. Turn off the model, you have your sketch. That's for a circle. And then this right here is going to be a square. So I'll just make a square for this. I can just click the lines and it creates a square. Since I want the square to be centered to the circle, just add this. And that's pretty much centered. Go ahead and lock that in place. This is coming out to look a little bit better. As I said, I know that that's 12, so I can just make that 12. The slot, you can use the slot because there's actually slot tools here. And that made the sketch, then extrude. Just check it. This side doesn't have that. I can go back. I'll just say it goes in about halfway. And then with reverse engineering software, you're always able to check your work, which this right here is a good remake of it. And since it is a CAD model, you can always go back to your sketches and change whatever you want. If you decide that that hole, you need it to be bigger, you simply go back and change it. Cuts into there because it's pretty big, but same thing. If you wanted it to be a smaller hole. And that's the difference of a CAD model versus a 3D scan STL, and the reason why you cannot directly add them. And I almost forgot to add this part in. So if you have your STL that's here, and you want to do the same thing in Fusion where you convert it, you have an auto surface tool. Basically what that's going to do is the same thing in Fusion. It's going to give you a model that basically wraps the 3D scan and allows you to edit easily with CAD created items. And it's done here. I'll just turn off the mesh. So now you have this. And it's the same thing in Fusion where you can click the triangles, but here they're, what's it called, quads. And if you wanted to do the same thing where you cut a hole through it, since it's technically a CAD body, you can cut your holes. Same thing, since you're on uneven surfaces, it comes out a little off.